Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here just before a holiday. Some odd news out there as far as Memorial Day is concerned and what people are afraid of after dealing with the pandemic for so long. Because every article is pandemic and then fear, even if we're as far out of it as we are now. But let's get to Biden first. President Biden spoke yesterday. I want to bring this back because of the way it was covered so much throughout the day. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. He held up a list. You've probably heard this already. He held up a list of all the Republicans who are touting the benefits of a program that he said they had nothing to do with. The rescue plan that was passed, they're going and telling their constituents how great it is. They're telling them all the different things they supported in it. But the reality, of course, is that Republicans are just terrible, terrible people, according to Biden. I think he used different words. But what I think is interesting about this is at the beginning of his same speech, he contradicted this exact message. But let's hear it. Let's hear the viral moment from yesterday.
Even my Republican friends in Congress, not a single one of them voted for the rescue plan. I'm not going to embarrass any one of them, but I have here a list of how back in their districts they're bragging about.
See, already there. And I don't know what audience was so pro-Biden, because usually his jokes do not land like that. They usually miss pretty hard. But they loved this. And he held up the little list. And, of course, anyone who has technology can zoom in, see some of the names on it. But he kept joking about it.
The rescue plan. They touted the restaurant revitalization fund. They touted the fact that we're in a situation where they touted grants to community health care centers. Touted. I mean, some people have no shame.
I really thought there was going to be a come on man. Biden is one to drop a come on man at every one of those situations. For whatever reason, that's not what he went with. But here's the thing. At the beginning of this speech, he talked about something different. He talked about the way in which the economy has recovered, the way in which the United States in its entirety has come back from a world of pandemic just a little while ago. And the reason why that's important when you look at the contradiction from just a second ago is he continues to fail to give any kind of attaboy to Operation Warp Speed. Here is how he kicked off this speech, where he then held Republicans to the task later on.
And from a year of darkness, we're now emerging into the light. And I said from the very beginning, there's no chance for this economy to come back unless we beat the pandemic. I remember Congressman Ryan and I talking about that a lot in the campaign trail. You had to beat the pandemic to bring the economy back. And so that's what we set out to do, to help a lot of the people that are right here.
A lot of who? What people? The people there in that room? Or maybe some former administration, some guy somewhere else, and Operation Warp Speed. Is that going to get an attaboy? No.
And after administering 271 million doses of vaccine in the first 120 days.
I love the fact that they're so proud of how quickly they did the vaccine, right? That it's 120 days in office and they had that much vaccine administered, because it demonstrates to anybody that they had nothing to do with creating the vaccine. And all the people that got it would have gotten it anyway. There was nothing that Biden did that wouldn't have been done by the previous administration to get these same numbers to go. It's the exact thing he's accusing Republicans of doing that went viral. For some reason, this doesn't. Some reason this isn't talked about anywhere near as much. But it's the exact same problem. It's going out there, taking credit for someone else's work as your own. All right, let's move on to one other thing that Biden said yesterday that I thought was particularly startling. And again, not a lot of coverage of it. He made reference to the fact that Alzheimer's is going to be so bad in the United States in the future that every hospital bed in the country is going to be occupied by an Alzheimer's patient. I'll play the audio as he says it. But what's intriguing or just fear-mongering about that is, one, I don't know where that stat comes from. That's maybe it's Biden demonstrating he might have a little Alzheimer's himself. I'm not sure. But what's more important than that in listening to this piece is it's the exact thing we were doing, I don't know, 6 months, however long ago, when we talked about coronavirus. The biggest reason we had to lock down, the biggest reason we had to wear masks, do all the things we had to do to protect each other, was that hospital beds wouldn't have been able to contain the ill. That is a narrative that worked. It's a narrative that seemed to be true at the time. And there were places that struggled to have enough beds, although other places that expected to struggle didn't. And so now you're just using the same thing you've used before with a new illness, and you want people to, I guess, respond the same way. It's crazy to think that this is a politicized version of speech now.
We don't do something about Alzheimer's in America. Every single solitary hospital bed that exists in America, as the nurses can tell you, every single one will be occupied in the next 15 years with an Alzheimer's patient. Every one.
Now, I'm not trying to be sexist, by the way. I don't know why he said nurses and not doctors as well. I don't know why he said this one role in the medical field would have more knowledge of how many hospital beds than any other role in the medical field. But he said that if you ask nurses, that nurses will tell you that I guess I'll ask some people I know if they think that's accurate. But it's just so worrisome to think that this is going to be a prolonged version of speech on that side of the aisle. All right, I want to move on to other things. It is Friday. As much fun as you need to have on a Friday and get away from the news of the day, that's the only way to do it. A lot of Americans are worried about something, though, as we're all getting out of the pandemic. Something that surprised me because I don't know how this would occur, but 46% of people have been on the road less during the pandemic, and that means that 37% of Americans in a recent poll have said they fear they've forgotten how to drive. They fear that during that time where they've been at home, they've been sitting on the couch, they've been doing work, whatever it is, without having to get up and go anywhere. And maybe you're one of those people who also had your groceries delivered to your house. Maybe you really embraced pandemic life. I don't know. But because of that, 37% of people asked are like, maybe I have no idea how to do this again. And that does scare me. That actually scares me more than the Alzheimer's stat. If you said to me that in the next 5 years, if you're Biden on the campaign trail, which it feels like he's already on, and you say that in the next 5 years, 37% of Americans are going to drive and not know how, that makes me afraid. That I'll put on a mask if that somehow prevents that from happening. I don't know. But this is just nuts to see this stat out there. And I've seen article after article now, too, about how people are afraid of being back in the workplace for all kinds of reasons. Another one, actually, and I think this was a certain amount of Americans, were afraid of the bathroom experience at a workplace as opposed to at home. And I can agree with that. I think we all can agree with that it's probably not as fun or not as comfortable, might be a better word for it, to not have access to your own restroom anymore. But these are not reasons that we can just stay at home. And certainly anyone that's worried about driving, I would encourage you to just go out there and do it. All right. I want to leave you on one other funny thing before I take my first break here. Clarence Thomas was interviewed on the street, and his laugh is so contagious that everyone is playing it all over social media because this guy's laugh is just the kind of thing that I think is special. And some people have it. You know a person in your family. You probably know a friend, that when they laugh, you can't help. You're going to laugh with them because there's no way not to.
He has a chance.
I'm just a civil servant.
I know Lance Eder retired. He got to be looking for some work a little bit. No,
but you're a funny guy. What do you do? You just sort of stand around and photobomb people?
No, I'm calling with TMZ.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Okay, man. We love.
I love it. I love the face. Like, what do? You photobomb people? You're a funny guy. I like this guy. That's such a good laugh, though. It's the kind of laugh that you need on a Friday or need all the time. And for anybody out there, I'm just going to say it. Here we go. Get up on the soapbox for a quick second. Anybody out there that's afraid for any reason that our society is so close to being back, that masks have been dropped as a mandate by the CDC and a whole lot of places, that all these things are changing, take a big breath and listen to a little laugh from Clarence Thomas and say to yourself, everything's going to be okay.
Lance.
Everything's going to be okay. Quick break and a lot more. Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here for the day. Chad is back after the holiday. I saw the Five crushed everybody in ratings, the Fox TV show The Five. And then Greg Gutfeld had a great point about what the White House's mission is every single day, every single moment that they wake up, that, the president is in charge of that staff of people. Their mission is to hide how many things they'd like to do that are very, very far to the left. And I honestly know a lot of people question whether or not Biden himself is in charge. I think that's a good question. But let's listen to this point from Greg.
Everything the White House does is meant to prevent you from seeing how hard left the mission has become. It's the opposite of the previous boss. Whether you like Trump or you hated him, he did everything in front of you. Joe is more like a paid spokesman for an infomercial for a product that you never actually see. And then you get to this poll, right?
Okay, I'm going to stop before he talks about the poll for just a second, because that's a great analogy. That is a great way to say it about a lot of things. I think that Biden will even go out there and tell you, President Biden, that he is interested in bipartisan solutions to things. If we can come to an agreement, that's my goal. And then every single thing that gets passed is utterly partisan. So every time he's speaking, it's almost like a paid spokesperson is speaking. And honestly, the people that are paid to speak are not the ones in charge. But it's the idea to be out there, to be at the forefront of saying the right thing while doing something totally different. This is a type of politics we are very familiar with from the past, and definitely not the type of politics that our last president practiced very often. All right, here's the poll, though, which also demonstrates something very interesting.
In polls of liberal perception, it's presented as a negative when you are seen as too liberal, even by the liberals. If you say, hey, look at this, he's really liberal. No.
How interesting is that it actually would be considered bad in a lot of circles after a poll asked liberal people that being too far to the left is bad to everybody. So how do you get around that if you're President Biden? How do you move around when you know that one of the things you are is very far to the left, and you're not trying to convince us that you are?
It's kind of like whipped cream on ice cream, and they need to lie about their depth of liberalism in order to survive.
That's how you do it. You lie about the depth of liberalism that you have, that you practice every day, all day long, and that's how you survive. And it is interesting to think that there are people that don't abide by this, people like AOC, but some of the things that they're saying seem to be getting pulled back. In other news, Amazon, very proud of a brand new invention that they have out there. And look, there's something I want to say before I actually talk about this. Mental health is important. Of course, after we saw another horrific a shooting in San Jose, I think that people's mental health is tremendously important, and doing the right thing if you're a business or wherever to focus on the mental health of people would be tremendous. However, when I say that, and then I see in execution what Amazon is trying to do to help its employees have improved mental health, it's ridiculous. It's called an Amazen. It's a Zen booth they put in the middle of a warehouse floor. If you haven't heard of this before, it's just sitting. It's a box the size of a telephone booth, which I know if you're a younger person, you have no idea what that is. But it's a box for one, and you stand in it, and I guess it plays you, videos and music to help you relax or help you maybe cry. A lot of employees on Amazon's social media have been saying that it's just really a cry box. But they're so proud of the fact that they have a single human booth in the middle of their warehouse floor for you to calm down in if need be. And the audio for it, the woman who invented it, who's just a member of Amazon's staff, and how proud she is, just it sounds so strange.
That people could go and focus on their mental and emotional well-being. The Zen booth is an interactive kiosk where you can navigate through a library of mental health and mindful practices to recharge that internal battery.
Yeah, and that sounds like exactly what it is. It sounds like it's wonderful and it's great, and all you got to do is get in the booth. You'll recharge your batteries. You can go back out on the warehouse floor and keep working. This comes on the heels of all the other things we've heard recently about Amazon and working at Amazon. Things like drivers have to pee while driving. They can't stop to do that. There's so many different challenges, I guess, that being an Amazon worker already entails. And now, hey, here, this is a benefit for you, Amazon people. We'll let you go ahead into this little booth and just be sad there and not have to worry for a few minutes. But you probably are going to have someone knocking on the door fairly quickly into it because, again, it's the weirdest thing. In execution, this is so much different than just, paying for people to go and get outside help, practice, counseling, whatever. All right, let's move on to another thing. It is a Friday. I like silly things. A woman in England confronted a man who had fallen asleep on her sofa in her sunroom. She walks into her house, I guess, and there's a dude she doesn't know asleep on a sofa in her home. Most places in the world, and I think most people here in the United States, this would be a very different interaction. This would not be a pleasant conversation. This would be bad, and it would be negative very quickly. But the reason I want to play this audio is because it's the exact opposite. It's the most polite version of discovering a dude in your house I've ever heard. And to be entirely honest, maybe we need to find more of this. I have talked a little bit about recently, other places, I guess, not so much here, that there seems to be an amount of anger that's just in a lot of people right now walking around. And maybe that's because of the things that have been changing in the last few weeks or few months or the last year or so of things changing and then changing back, of course. But everybody seems at a heightened sense of tension. And this woman just handles the fact that there's a random dude in her house incredibly.
Excuse me. Do you know you're in someone's house?
No.
Yeah, you're in our house.
Oh, sorry.
Were you drunk last night?
I was a little bit, yeah, I know.
Okay. If you can't hear it well, because there's a little music playing, she asked somebody if they knew that they were at a house. They said yes. And then she said, did you drink? And the guy's like, yeah, I was a little bit.
Yeah, I was just trying to find my house.
Whereabouts do you live?
Up in Hadfield.
Yeah, this isn't Hadfield.
Oh, gosh, where am I? Whereabouts am I?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. My other favorite part of this audio is that he asks where he is. When he's getting woke up in this couch that isn't his, in a house that he thought was his, I guess, that's not. And then he gets outside. He's looking around. He's like, where am I now? And they pointed out where he should go to get home. This is incredible. We need more of this. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here with you. Chad is back after the holidays. Lots going on in the world, but it is a Friday. So there is a desire for me every single Friday to do as much lighthearted things as I can. Although this is actually technically breaking news as well. A couple guys in the world of sports media were talking about this chase that happened the other day. This guy who's driving a moped the wrong direction on the highway, running from cops. And they started to kind of do some play-by-play of that as it occurred, and this has gone viral. So I'm going to go ahead and throw an attaboy to some people who do other media things. This is two gentlemen on the radio talking about how this is playing out, and I wish that I had done this. I saw this occur yesterday as well. I wish I had gone the play-by-play route.
Oh, that's trouble. He just took a hard left. He's going head-on into traffic now.
And he went right by the cop.
Yep. Oh, yeah, the cop's standing still.
Oh, and they're trying to box him in.
Look at this maneuver.
What is this guy doing?
This guy's like a Mario Andretti type.
Oh, and now the cops are on foot.
Oh, this guy's about to tackle him. Oh, he's going to. Oh, no. They stopped him.
They did.
Right behind a tree. About 5 police officers now ripping a guy off a moped.
Can you believe it?
I love how that sounded. Every part of that made me laugh a lot. The fact that you got two gentlemen that are like, two hosts. I'm not throwing names out because technically they do something similar to what we do. But they are just going with the play-by-play. And it was nuts to see that guy. If anybody else caught that video of a man on a moped just running the absolute wrong direction, swerving past cars, and also the fact that it was a moped was kind of interesting to me because you don't usually think of that as a vehicle that would be really good at any kind of getaway any kind of chase scenario, you would assume that the moped would fail in that world. But that is not necessarily what happened. So I guess he's a survivor. I don't know. I can't believe that he didn't get in a worse accident. All right, let's move on. The government still has intel it hasn't looked into as far as the Wuhan. Isn't it weird, real quick? And I have audio to play from the White House press secretary, the deputy press secretary. But think about where we were a year ago, 6 months ago, honestly, probably 4 months ago in the Wuhan origin conversation. If you said anything about the virus, about COVID-19, and that the fact that there was a lab that studied coronavirus, specifically bat coronavirus in Wuhan, where those things weren't argued. We didn't argue about where the first human COVID cases happened in. We didn't worry about that. We were sure they happened in Wuhan. We didn't debate whether or not there was a laboratory that did research into this kind of thing in Wuhan. We just thought it was terrible. A lot of people said it was awful and even racist to question whether or not the lab was connected to the outbreak of the most deadly virus we've seen in a long time in the world. And now that is utterly embraced. Everyone seems to be willing to at least question those sort of things. Dr. Anthony Fauci had done that earlier in the week. This has happened pretty much across the board now. And now you have answers like the press secretary telling people that they're not sure what to write off. She was asked a question about whether or not it made sense to at least remove the idea that the virus could have been purposefully released by the Chinese, not necessarily accidentally. And even that now is potentially in question. And according to this last report in the New York Times, the U.S. is said to have unexamined intelligence to pore over on virus origins. President Biden called for a 90-day sprint to understand the origins of the coronavirus pandemic came after intelligence officials told the White House they had a raft of still unexamined evidence that required additional computer analysis that might shed some light on the mystery. This is according to a senior administration official. What's so interesting about this breaking news, about this New York Times conversation, is that when President Biden took office, he prevented something that already was in place from the Biden administration of our own intelligence looking into whether or not the COVID-19 virus originated in the lab in Wuhan. This was something we were looking into. And when Biden got into office, he said, don't do that anymore. That's not important. And now, apparently, we have tons of evidence. The officials declined to describe the new evidence, but the revelation that they are hoping to apply an extraordinary amount of computer power to the question of whether the virus accidentally leaked from the Chinese lab suggests that the government may not have exhausted the database of Chinese communications, the movement of lab workers, and the pattern of the outbreak of the disease around the city of Wuhan. I just want to pause for another second and try to conceive a world in which we find out, and I don't know what we'll find out. That's the thing. When anybody talks about this, you do have to always preface with, we don't have any data. I'm not coming to you today and saying that we know that the virus came out of this lab in Wuhan any more than we know it could have occurred naturally or could have been purposefully put into the world. All I know now is that the questions are no longer racist to ask and that people are receiving them in a certain way. So when you say all that, can you envision a place in which the border's a mess? And it's a mess. And the plans to fix it seem completely illogical and not capable of doing it. We have skyrocketing inflation all over the place. And potentially we have breaking news someday in the future that might actually indicate that what Trump was so often ridiculed for might actually be correct, that the Wuhan virus we may find out. That it's sort of ridiculous to think about the fact that all three of those things could wind up being true within the first year or so of Trump no longer being in office. And I know people have a lot of opinions. Marjorie Taylor Greene has some of those opinions too, of course, as far as former President Trump is concerned. And yet some of the biggest hot button things he had talked about, and the virus itself being fairly controlled here in the United States, as I continue to say, is really something that he deserves credit for. All right, it is Friday. I want to keep moving on from the news of the day. I can't help myself. This is something else that went viral that made me laugh quite a bit, so I'm just going to share it here too. A musician turned his cat's warble into a song, and I have to be honest, as far as like pop music goes, if this were top 40 radio right now, I think this would get some airtime. I think this would play just fine. He did include the warble to start, so you can hear the transition. I apologize for this. I'm going to play an annoying sound first, and then you're going to hear it turned into what sounds like actual music. Okay, I don't care so much about the guy singing. Outside of that line, I mean, that wrote itself. After you have the warble turned into music, then you say, I am human and you are cat. I mean, come on. This has already got to be as good as some of the other stuff on top 40 Pop Radio. But that's out there in the world right now. You can check it out. It made me laugh. It's a holiday. I want to do some things that are a little bit lighter. I got to take a break here, a lot more in a bit. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Podcasts are American as hot dogs, apple pie, football, and sushi.
Oh, my goodness. No.
Okay, maybe not sushi. Next time you have a craving for something sweet and tangy, download a Chad Benson Show podcast.
Boy, that is good. It's different because you get a little bit of saltiness.
It's so good because it's sweet and salty at the same time.
Get a taste on iTunes, iHeart, or Spotify and binge to your ears' content.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Chad is back after the holiday weekend. There's UFO news out there, but before I get to that, I first want to talk about this teacher out of Oregon and some of the things she said on a Zoom call that have gone viral. So she's an 8th grade teacher. Her name is Catherine Watkins. She teaches humanities at Cedar Park Middle School, and she was recorded on Zoom telling fellow educators, this isn't students, about how that profession needs to evolve and needs to teach this critical race theory stuff that a lot of people are very worried about having a lot more negative than positive value on a lot of the kids that they'd get taught it to, essentially teaching white kids that they're racist and they can't really control their race. That's what critical race theory is in a nutshell to some degree. But listen to this, because it's very scary to think how woke or how, the good of the people is being done by anybody that takes on these sort of things, and the way in which she compares teachers who aren't going to teach anti-racism to teachers that have been in trouble for very different things. Here is part of that call.
I'm going to say something that's not nice and not sweet, but it's true. If you're not evolving into an anti-racist educator, you're making yourself obsolete in this field of profession.
All right, so that was the first comment she made, that she said pretty much everybody's got to teach this or else you're behind on the times. Most of the educators, when I watched this video, were nodding their heads. They're like, yep, that's true, that's true. And then she said this.
So if you're being resistant, I understand that, but you're going to have to eventually come to the light, because if you're going to keep with those old views of colonialism, it's going to lead to being fired, because you're going to be doing damage to our children, trauma. And so as we fire the teachers who sexually abuse our children, we will be firing the teachers who do racist things to our children, traumatize them.
Okay, hold on. We took a huge turn at the tail end of that statement to a place that I don't understand at all. Of course, someone would get fired if they did a racist thing, but not teaching critical race theory isn't a racist thing. I saw an argument about this a few days ago where one of the experts weighing in said that maybe it would be appropriate for schools to teach this as one of several different types of theories, one of several ideas, as opposed to take it as though it is simply fact, this one version of thinking, and treat it, it's not theory if you're teaching it a certain way, you're teaching it like it's something else. And then just to say what she said at the end, though, that it would be akin to someone who sexually abuses a child to not teach a kid critical race theory. I'm actually afraid of that concept. It's not necessarily that I'm as amused as maybe I hopefully would be by it, but if people believe this, if enough educators and other individuals start to make these wild jumps in comparisons, I think you get to a place where you can't even have a conversation. If you were trying to argue with a teacher like this as to whether or not you wanted your kid to learn this or other different theories as to why our society behaves the way it does, and she related it to abusing your kids if she doesn't teach them it, what would you say next?
Trauma. And so as we fire the teachers who sexually abuse our children, we will be firing the teachers who do racist things to our children and traumatize them.
I sure hope we don't fire teachers that want to not just teach that one theory to their children. I really hope that's not the road we go down. In other news, and this is another thing that kind of shocked me, so why not just play this today? There was a former D.C. police chief on with Jake Tapper. His name is Charles Ramsey. He's a contributor to CNN as well. He had an idea for something he thinks CNN should start doing. They had that COVID-19 counter. I think they still have it, which is the amount of people who've lost their lives to COVID-19, which is dark, to say the least, and I'm not sure if it's effective. But he thought that they should do something else.
We've got to stay focused on the problem of gun violence. We get into it whenever there's a mass shooting. But, CNN, for an example, just like you keep a running total of the number of people dying from COVID every day, why not keep a running total of the number of people dying from gun violence? I mean,
That sounds horrible as an idea. That sounds terrible as an idea because the amount of people that don't lose their lives in mass shootings is actually much higher than the amount of people who do. And all violent, I can't even fathom that idea either. It's obnoxious to think that would have any impact as well on what we change in our society, to just see a running total on CNN, much like the COVID one, because I feel like that's counterintuitive to what they're trying to accomplish. This isn't necessarily the point to make people more afraid. People are worried, at least 30% of them, that they don't know how to drive anymore because they've been locked inside during the pandemic. Now we want to put up a running total on a cable news organization that is one to do this sort of thing, that just says the amount of people who are no longer with us because of violence. That sounds horrible. We have to get away from this world of fear-mongering in everything that we do and find a way to act as though our society is what it is. It's much better off than we talk about it being all the time. All right. In other news, I saw this. Maybe this plays into the same concept. 1 in 11 Americans Google themselves every morning. 1 in 11 people put their own name into Google to see what they've been up to and to make sure nothing, I guess, comes up that they don't like. Another 5% said they do it once a week, but 1 in 11 do it every day. I don't know what you could be up to. I actually used to work with a broadcaster for a while that would joke that his dad told him, don't make the Monday or the Sunday paper. Whatever you do in life, don't make it. And the kid would ask back. He's an adult now, but when he was a kid, he'd be like, well, what about for a good reason? He goes, nope. The good reasons are fine, but they're going to outweigh the bad ones. You can make the Sunday paper, so just don't make it. And I don't know if that's the reason that people are turning to Google to see if there's something about them or maybe people that share their name out there in the world. But that also kind of demonstrates a level of insecurity, a level of worry that maybe we don't need to have. Unless all these people are just looking for the good things they did and trying to see if those things are out there. Another 20% said that at least once a year they put their name in Google. I think that's fine. To at least see if there's anything out there that's wrong. Just over half of us do it less often than all of those, and some of us have never Googled ourselves, which is probably, again, a good place to be. You probably want to be the kind of person that has never once, for any reason, pumped your name into the old Google machine. All right, before we break here, we got a break coming up in just a bit. 5 steps for cooking the perfect burger. I figured I'd share this because it is just about time for Memorial Day. Aim for an 80-20 meat to fat ratio. An 80-20 ratio gives you a good balance of moisture and flavor. This is something I would not accomplish. I'm not much of a cook. Base your patty size on what cooking surface you use. A good rule of thumb, if you want to make the perfect burger, is when you're cooking on a griddle, use around 4 ounces of meat. If you're cooking on a grill, it's 6 to 8 ounces of patty. And if you're searing something, it's 7 ounces of patty, and it's not going to overcook. Use chilled meat and don't overcook it. This is a better plan than, I guess, using defrosted meat. Chilled meat will keep its form much better while you're cooking. This is what one chef recommends. 4th in this line of 5 things you need to do to cook the perfect burger, something I know I will not accomplish even after I talked about it here on the radio. Season the beef after you've formed the patty. Mixing salt and seasoning into the middle of the patty can just draw out moisture and make it dense like a hockey puck. that sounds like the kind of thing I'll make for family members when they come over. And finally, flip it once and only once. This is the hardest one by far for me to accomplish. And I don't know. This is a very odd thing to talk about on the radio. I can't help it. My mind is a lot of places today. When you have anything that cooks and you know that the bottom side is still cooked, I get immediately curious. This is my version of putting my name into Google every day and wondering how it's going. When I have something that's flipped over on a cooking surface, I always imagine that it's cooking too fast and I want to keep flipping it. So I do that a lot. But apparently, according to the experts, flip your burger once, only once, and you will have the perfect burger. So to summarize again, 80-20 meat ratio, patty the size of the cooking surface. A good rule of thumb is a few ounces for every, certain amount of surface you have, 6 to 8 for a grill. That makes sense. Chilled meat, season after, and flip only one time. I said there's no chance I'm going to accomplish this goal, none whatsoever, and that's okay. I think that it's fine. You know what I'll be happy about is that Memorial Day is coming, and I'll have people over my house, and no one will be that afraid of anything. That'll be the best part, at least, knock on wood, as I say that we'll all be comfortable, because, things are getting better, people. Don't worry, and don't watch much CNN. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. More people reacting to the ever-changing world of the COVID-19 origins conversation. Senator Ted Cruz, one of those human beings, said this.
The Wuhan Institute of Virology is 400 yards away from the wet market where the first outbreak occurred. Right. I think the most natural conclusion, which the Chinese government does not want anyone to know the facts of, is that the virus escaped accidentally from that Chinese government lab.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that, Senator Cruz. We also have Representative Dan Crenshaw out there in the world saying a couple different things. The first of which is just that the only option after this 90-day period investigating the origins of COVID-19 will be to do some stuff they had already thought we needed to do before.
I think we're going to gather the evidence that we can. It's going to be tough because, like you said, China has closed its doors. Now, they're acting very suspicious. Imagine that. They don't want people to know that this is where the virus originated. But I do think by the end of that 90 days, it's going to be safe to say that that's probably the only option.
Yeah, it's going to be it's so odd to have this conversation the way in which it's happening right now, because so much of it is sort of a retconning of what had been said for months and months and months, and also a lot of the moves that need to be made, whether it's through the World Health Organization, which a lot of people don't trust. Their last report into this was terrible, or the moves are made on our own. These are all things we had started to do with the previous administration, and things that now we're not doing. Representative Dan Crenshaw also talked about a bill that he put forward a year ago that would talk about Chinese responsibility and how Americans could maybe do something in the world of law to get a little bit of retribution.
I'm glad my fellow members of Congress have come to the party now. This bill that allows Americans to sue China and removes foreign sovereignty from China in order to do that. I introduced that bill over a year ago. Back in April, Senator Cotton introduced it in the Senate. We worked very closely to make sure that the legal language was correct. So glad there's now support for that.
Yes. Yeah, we're glad there's now support for this sort of thing. And I'm optimistic, I guess, moving forward. And this is one time, I will say it this way, where the press was valuable. The press at times is the opposite of valuable to our society. But a lot of the breaking news that was reported on places that were not our government is what I think turned the tide as far as the government's speaking on this. And also just the fact that I think they hated the last guy who was in office so much that anything he said, if it felt as though you could attack it, you could critique it, you could go after it, you went that road instead of just being honest and saying, all right, maybe there's some truth to this thing being said. That was always the maneuver in the past. All right, moving on. Memorial Day air travel is set to boom as a rapidly expanding airline industry rises to meet demand. American air travel is set to make a comeback with 60% more people expected to travel this weekend. For some of the more than 37 million Americans likely to travel, an expanded airline industry now means a selection of new, cost-effective options. $19 flights doesn't really get any cheaper than that, according to one of the travelers that bought one and got interviewed. They are out there. The Spirit Airlines of the world, everybody is picking up and doing more travel this weekend. I know that like so many of these news stories, there is that part of your brain that starts to wonder if this is okay for a lot of people. And absolutely it is fine. Absolutely this is good news to think that we're in a world where the airline industry, where all this travel can start to come back. Because, of course, I think as we get further and further into the, whether or not you're vaccinated, and I can say on the show, I don't mind saying I am vaccinated. I took the vaccine. I did it because I thought it would be easier for me moving forward at my place of work or wherever else. Not that it's a good thing per se. I just thought it'd be easier to have that done. If you're a person that doesn't want to get the vaccine, I don't judge you. I am not like other people out there who might tell you you're an idiot. There are different bits of science that would say that some things are better to go this way, better to go that way. But it's a medical procedure. You're choosing whether or not you want to do it. So I'm on team everybody, and let's just open up society. There's a solution out there if people want it. If they don't want it, that's fine. We can't keep wearing masks and social distancing and keeping businesses less than full capacity. And it has been nice, real quick, just to talk about the NBA, the world of sports, and to see the amount of fans in the crowd, to see the amount of people back at these kind of games. I know that at the Yankee game the other day, some Trump supporters revealed a flag that got confiscated quickly. It's out there on social media if you want to see it. Maybe we can put it up on some of our social media pages. I can put it on the Craig Collins Show on Facebook as well. Fans got in trouble for trying to drop that flag, and they're not still at full capacity there. But I do think it's nice to see fans in the stands, even if they have political opinions. I still think that's okay. All right, I want to move on to one other story that was in the New York Post the other day. The reason why I think this is interesting, though, an owner of a candy store in Indiana got in a lot of trouble. This guy put up on Facebook that he wanted to hire people. A lot of businesses are trying to find people, trying to find workers to hire this time of year or just in general, and they're struggling to do it. And this owner wanted to make sure that certain types of employees knew they did not want to apply. And this didn't necessarily mean he was being sexist or racist per se, although at the tail end of one of those, he did go ahead and say some things he shouldn't have. But he was trying to discourage people that he thought were bad employees, and he gave them nicknames. And I do think some of these things are kind of interesting, kind of funny, I will say that. But then the last one he did, and the way in which he described it, that was the mistake. If I had been there to advise this individual on how to do a job post or put out something on social media complaining about people who work at his candy stop, and his name is Randy Good, by the way, I would have told him to pump the brakes at the last one. But here's some of the types of workers he said he didn't want. He didn't want workers that were, lazy, that were roamers or hiders or controllers, which is what he called them. And roamers, by the way, you've worked with somebody like this. They just kind of wander around, especially if it's in a retail environment, and they don't really do a lot of stuff, but they don't want to be around where the work is happening, so they just kind of wander. Maybe they go to the bathroom a lot of times. That's a roamer. I have no problem with him saying he doesn't want to hire them. A hider is probably someone who also goes to the restroom, someone who just disappears. They're at work. They've punched into work. We have no idea where they are. Controllers are people that try to do a little bit too much as far as maybe running a business when they're not actually hired to be a boss. I don't hate him saying that. He said that he wants people who work hard, who are nice. He doesn't want to see anybody that's, again, lazy or not dedicated to the job. And then he went one step further. This went viral in social media. On his Facebook page, he also said that he did not want anyone that he thought was a splitter. And what is a splitter? You ask Randy Good. He said it's people that divide other people at the workplace. It's people that start to create cliques and, are responsible for all that version of drama that happens in the workplace. I agree again with Randy Good. And I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm throwing it out there, and social media might come after me now. But he made a mistake. he actually described what he thought a splitter was, and he said it was a young woman. He said that these young women learn this behavior from their moms. This is all part of his post, and the part that was called out as sexist, and the reason he had to pull it down. People called him a woman-hating troll. But he said that in his place of work, in his experience, he's had people that divide each other in the workplace, and they have been women. He should not have said the last part about whether or not, any one of these groups are men or women or what have you. But other than that, if you had just looked at all the words he chose, all the different terms he coined, this feels very, very woke. This feels Gen Z. This feels like anything else out there where you have brand new words. This is just like swole or anything else that the kids say. Can't be a roamer, a hider, a controller. You can't be a splitter. Although, again, you probably shouldn't have said, Randy, that you thought that was just ladies. That did get you in a bit of trouble. But I'm trying to say, I guess for the most part, I agreed with the Good Candy Shop and their Facebook post that was all over the news and covered in the New York Post. I got to take a break. A lot more in a bit. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
I can't take it anymore!
Well, get over it. It's time to forge a new path with your very own political cartographer, Chad.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Chad is back after the holiday. I wonder what it feels like to win $1 million for getting a vaccine. I don't know. I would like to know. I've gotten the vaccine, so I'm game. I'm on board. I don't live in Ohio. That would kind of help. The first millionaire, the first vaccine-millionaire, spoke to the media the other day.
I was completely surprised when I got the call. I still can't believe it. I was screaming enough that my parents thought that I was crying and that something was wrong. And when I started yelling that I won $1 million and I was going to be a millionaire, they told me to calm down and make sure it wasn't a prank before I really started freaking out. They grounded me a little bit.
Grounded. She's got $1 million now. What was also interesting about that press conference they had with her is someone asked her what she thought of the program, the program that gave her $1 million. And that's the most self-serving media question I've ever seen anybody ask. They did ask her whether or not the Vax-A-Million contest is what got her to go get her vaccine. She did give the wrong answer. The media was not hoping to hear what she had to say. She got it right away. She was one of the first people interested in getting vaccinated, so it had nothing to do with the fact that she could win $1 million. She didn't know she was going to yet. But then they also asked her how she felt about it, and she said she loved it. How do you ask anybody for a real opinion about something that wound up giving them $1 million? How could anyone ask that question with any level of earnest and get an answer other than this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life? All right, moving on. Other news. It's Friday. I want to have some fun. TikTok has had a couple things recently go viral that are of interest to me. TikTok might be a social media platform that you don't care about at all. That's completely fine. Lots of people do lots of things on it every single day, and every so often it catches my eye. TikTokers apparently are following this trend right now of trying to come up with the most elaborate Starbucks drink possible. This is because one guy went viral a while ago for having a ridiculous drink that had a very specific amount of like vanilla pumps in it and all this kind of stupid stuff. And now apparently workers at Starbucks are turning to the social media platform to tell people on it, beg people on it, to stop coming in with ridiculously extravagant orders in your own attempt to go viral. This is the problem with social media, in my opinion. This is the biggest problem with it, is that we wind up in this world where you can make a lot of money. A very small amount of people wind up being very rich on social media platforms. I was actually looking the other day at another trend on TikTok, one I didn't really intend on talking about, but I'm going to bring it up now. It kind of makes sense. The hot tub stream, or I think this is on Twitch, actually, another of the many things out there where kids go to watch each other play video games or whatever. The hot tub stream is exactly what it sounds like. It's a young woman, attractive, playing a video game with a bunch of electronics around her, well in a hot tub, and she's wearing a bikini. And there's a few people that are doing this right now. This trend is only a few weeks old, that are making millions of dollars. Essentially creating a version of, I guess, okay for everybody, dirty content. It's not dirty per se. And I even saw I'm totally dovetailing into this topic now. I saw that Twitch released new rules about their hot tub streamers, and I just, for whatever reason, want to share this here. The first rule they wrote, the first idea about how they're going to censor and contain an exploding part of their service is to say that it's not against their rules. This is a quote. It's not against Twitch's rules for a streamer to be sexy. There's nothing wrong with that, and nothing wrong with people on the platform thinking that one of the people who's using it is sexy. But they are worried about being too sexual. So, especially on platforms that are mostly kids, you have to find the right approach from having a hot tub streamer be a thing you allow, even a category now on that website, and not necessarily encouraging the performers and or the customers to go way too far into the gratuitous world that they could all go into. I just thought that was incredibly interesting. And then the fact that I also see the Starbucks story and how people are trying to go viral. And I don't know. I think it takes a lot more than just this, although I now have thought of a merger of these two ideas that could ruin the world. A hot tub streamer who tries to go and get a drink at Starbucks. That might be terrible if we get into that one. All right, the one other TikTok story I did want to talk about, though, this was of a lot of interest to me, too, is a TikTok performer snuck onto Jeffrey Epstein's infamous island and recorded incredible footage of just roaming around on Jeffrey Epstein's island. It is surreal. I'll put it up on my social media pages so you can see it. And there have been a lot of stories recently, too, about this TikTok person or this social media idiot going to like a national monument of some kind or going somewhere else in the world and trying to take a photo that they shouldn't take and getting in a lot of trouble. And I do not encourage any of that. All of that is ridiculous. And yet getting to see this island located in the U.S. Virgin Islands because some social media person just wandered to go there. I'm not trying to encourage. I don't want to encourage. I want to tell people not to do these things. But at the same time, this video was at least interesting to watch. And as I said, I will put it up on my social media page, The Craig Collins Show on Facebook, so you can check it out there. Because, there's a lot of things that have happened in the news that I've at least been curious about. And what the look of that island was one of them. And so a YouTuber, a TikToker got that done for me, and I thank them. All right, one other story I want to touch on real quick. I know I don't have a lot of time to do it, and it's kind of an intense story to do. But I saw that half of millennials don't care, don't know, or do not believe in God, in the existence of God. A new survey found that 43% of millennials in the United States don't care or don't think that God exists. I am a Catholic, and other generations did not have the problem to this degree of not caring, more so than just, not believing in. What I think is so interesting about this, and the reason I want to bring it up, another big thing you're hearing about a lot in the news is how younger people, specifically millennials, even Gen Z, struggle with mental illness to a degree that is higher than people of other ages. So they're struggling with depression. They're struggling with things that maybe generations before them didn't struggle with it. And I can't help but think that there might be a parallel between people not having faith or not caring about the existence of God or something. I mean, I'm not telling you what faith to have, and then also struggling with things like depression. I feel like those things could collide a little more than maybe we want to. So when I saw this story, when I saw it posted out there that the apathy is the biggest challenge for people who are younger, I just wondered if maybe in that approach, whatever approach it is, maybe not the Amazon Zen box approach where you just go into a little phone booth and try to get a little bit healthier in your mind, I guess, by watching videos, but maybe some exploration of faith that doesn't involve just I don't care at all. It doesn't involve this version of who gives a crap if any of this exists or it doesn't affect me at all. Maybe that is a solution, and whether you find faith or not is fine. But I just do think it's interesting, and I think Breitbart specifically reported on this, that more and more young people have no frame of reference. They don't care at all. All right, I got a break. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Happy to be here. This has gone viral recently. Elizabeth Warren was on MSNBC having one of the most ridiculous "I love you" kind of interviews I've seen in a while. She is absolutely. I think that Stephanie Ruhle is just smitten with her. But anyway, Elizabeth Warren said the part out loud that you're supposed to keep quiet as far as the infrastructure bill goes. This is what that sounded like.
We were in a crisis before the pandemic hit. It only got worse during the pandemic. This is our chance to expand our idea of what infrastructure means.
I can't help but immediately laugh. This is our chance to expand the definition of a word because of the pandemic. That is definitely not the way in which anyone would have wanted her to articulate that from her side of the aisle. They would have probably preferred she said something a little bit different, but this is our chance. Right now, let's not blow it.
Expand our idea of what infrastructure means.
Yep, this is our chance. Don't worry about it, Elizabeth. They'll try to get it done, at least on your side of the aisle. Another thing that went viral yesterday, and something that I can't help continue to talk about, President Biden gave a speech. He talked about all the Republicans that have taken credit for work he did, for the work that him and Democrats did to pass a bill. And before I even play the audio and then demonstrate the hypocrisy that exists within it, I do want to say that if you're a politician and you didn't support the totality of a bill that was as ridiculous as it was, the rescue plan or any of the other ones, the infrastructure one that now exists, but you did support portions of it, you did want to see this happen or that happen, roads get built, bridges, what have you, obviously people get aid that they needed, I think you can go back to your constituents and be proud of part of a bill that got passed, even if you voted no for it, because you were on board with those aspects of it. It's the totality of a thing that sometimes makes you vote a certain way, and the fighting that happens on, in Capitol Hill, on at the White House all the time, in any of the D.C. areas where I guess they're having those conversations. I just think it's so interesting that you could ridicule someone for not giving credit to the work you did, and then still actually take credit for work someone else did. Here's the first part of it, though. This is what went viral. This is President Biden saying he has a list of Republicans, a naughty list, essentially, of people that are doing things he doesn't get.
Even my Republican friends in Congress, not a single one of them voted for the rescue plan. I'm not going to embarrass any one of them, but I have here a list of how back in their districts they're bragging about.
How humor-starved are all the human beings that were at that press conference to laugh that hard and applause? I don't think I've ever seen someone pull out a piece of paper and my reaction was hard laughter and applause, that I couldn't control my mouth or my hands. And I was like, oh, my God, he's got a piece of paper. But they seem to love it.
The rescue plan. They touted the restaurant revitalization fund. They touted the fact that we're in a situation where they're dealing with touted grants to community health care centers. Touted, some people have no shame.
Okay, let's see if you pass your own test then, sir. Let's see if when you talk about, the vaccine, the fact that the economy has recovered, that all those things are happening, that the previous administration and Operation Warp Speed helped you get there in the first 100-plus days in office, the fact that you've administered so many vaccines has nothing to do with you. Do you go ahead and throw the attaboy that you're saying Republicans aren't giving you?
And from a year of darkness, we're now emerging into the light. And I said from the very beginning, there's no chance for this economy to come back unless we beat the pandemic. I remember Congressman Ryan and I talking about that a lot in the campaign trail. You had to beat the pandemic to bring the economy back.
So how did we beat it? If the pandemic is getting beat right now, what happened? I love how much time is spent on this conversation. And this is actually before he then holds Republicans to their feet to the fire, I guess. This is a way in which he could demonstrate if he wants to be bipartisan. I think that I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. This is probably going to be something I talk about every time I'm on the show. Just one attaboy for Operation Warp Speed would make tremendous sense.
And so that's what we set out to do, to help a lot of the people that are right here. And after administering 271 million doses of vaccine, in the first 120 days. And we have the cases are down now from January. They're down 83%, COVID cases, down. The number of deaths has fallen by 85%. Schools reopened.
It's not happening. It's not. I could keep going. I could keep playing the audio. He's saying all the great numbers, all the wonderful things that he's achieved, and yet he didn't really achieve any of those things. And I can't seem to understand how you could say one thing and then do another thing. Actually, in other news, our former president, President Donald Trump, continues to release statements via his own website. These are statements that are being made because he doesn't have a social media platform to make them, and he is going after rhinos, Republicans that he believes do not stand for Republican ideals, ones that are Republican in name only, essentially. He went after Paul Ryan, who became a lame duck Speaker of the House, lost all vote. This is now quoting the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. He said, Rhino Paul Ryan, who became a lame duck Speaker of the House, lost all vote-getting capability with the people he represented in Wisconsin and was the single biggest factor, other than Romney himself, for the monumental Romney-Ryan loss in the presidential race of 2012. This is Trump speaking, and he is now speaking to other Republicans, telling them how to win elections. Interestingly, I was in the great state of Wisconsin. When they booed him off the podium, I literally had to come out to rescue him. That is a statement from the former president of the United States. One, for whatever reason, is not allowed on social media of any kind, but certainly a narrative that I think you'll see continue to emerge. The former president is attacking several other Republicans that he feels are not aligned with the idea. And there's a huge debate as to whether or not Republicans are for or against Trump. This is a conversation you're seeing a lot. I think that, honestly, it's a conversation that the left wants to have more than the right wants to have, because the left wants to continue to vilify a guy. They seem to think that that's going to help them win elections. The whole January 6th commission does seem politically motivated. And this actually comes from a lot of different people. I know that might sound like a hot take, but essentially a lot of data has demonstrated that commission would have a benefit in voting turnout for those on the left, not necessarily those on the right, not because of anything they discover, just because we prolong the narrative that there's something to discover. He already went through an impeachment trial, our former president of the United States. They already brought up all the information they possibly could in order to demonstrate whether or not he had anything to do with the riots that took place in the Capitol and whether his rhetoric was important. He was not found guilty in that impeachment trial. It seems like there's been enough things to have occurred already, and yet they want more things to occur for whatever reason. All right, before I take a break, I want to play this audio. Apparently, I don't know why I'm struggling so much to believe this. Maybe this says something about me. And I did watch the TV show Friends. I know people judge it, but I did. Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer actually liked each other, apparently. During the first season of the show, they had crushes on each other. They wanted to date. They almost wound up being a couple in real life. I always watched that show thinking it was ridiculous that David Schwimmer could get Jennifer Aniston. I always thought that it was insane that Ross actually had the ability to get Rachel for whatever reason, but I guess that's dumb me. In real life, she actually had interest in him.
And I think we both, at some point, we were both crushing hard on each other, but it was like two ships passing because one of us was always in a relationship, and we never crossed that boundary.
Honestly, and I remember saying one time to David, it's going to be such a bummer if the first time you and I actually kiss is going to be on national television. Sure enough, first time we kissed was in that coffee shop. So we just channeled all of our adoration and love for each other into Ross and Rachel.
I don't know why it's so hard for me to believe this. It's so hard. I feel like Jennifer Aniston is being nice. I don't know why. And I don't know what the whole Friends reunion is. I don't know why we all have a lot of interest in what looks like just a legitimate reunion as opposed to a new episode of the TV show. And I think that's what HBO Max at first kind of touted it to be. And now it's just sitting around and reminiscing about the show. There's audio out there of Matthew Perry just seeming hammered during it, or at least something's going on medically and he needs some treatment. But this is the wildest thing that I've seen now. The fact that David Schwimmer and Jennifer Aniston agree that during that first season, a season when it was the will they, won't they narrative that took over the show, they actually liked each other in real life. What is it about me? I think I need to judge myself for a second. I need to take a break. This is the Chad Benson Show. Greg Collins filling in. Ross coulda got Rachel is a epiphany I never thought I'd have.
I'm so tired. I'm exhausted.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I'm going to dive into a subject matter. It's probably very interesting. Sometimes maybe a little difficult for dudes to talk about. But it's something that we've probably thought of at least once for whatever reason. Paulina Gretzky, who is the daughter of NHL legend Wayne Gretzky and is a very attractive human. There's no other way to say that. She's got an Instagram account that is popular because of some of the ways in which she puts up what's called spicy photos, or I think they're called thirst traps if you're talking to the kids today. She recently appeared on a podcast called Pillows and Beer. I love the fact that celebrities of any stature get very open in the world of podcasting. Chad Benson, by the way, has a podcast. Check it out. But the world of podcasting, for whatever reason, makes a lot of celebrity people think like, oh, nobody's going to listen to this. I can say whatever I want. I'm not on the radio. I'm just on a podcast. She recently told a story about how when Playboy had asked her to do a spread in Playboy, they'd approached her with a financial offer to be in the magazine. Of course, when you're in that magazine, you gotta show up in the birthday suit. Her fiance, Dustin Johnson, came up with an alternative solution. So I think, and this is how I say that it might apply to a lot of guys, if you've ever dated anyone that you think is very, very attractive, maybe you've considered what would happen if they had a picture out there in the world and what you might do to prevent that picture. I don't think, for whatever reason, a lot of guys want photos of the missus to be all over the place. So I'm not surprised Dustin Johnson went the road he went. He offered to give her the amount of money that she would be making from Playboy to not do it, which I think is hilarious. He's engaged to this woman. Essentially, he's going to share finances with her anyway. Most people do, although I know some don't. And he's just trying to write her a check to keep her out of Playboy. She didn't do it. She didn't say in the podcast if the reason why was she got the money. The shoot did never happen. And you can listen to that entire podcast out there in the world. But I just think that's hilarious because there are some guys that wouldn't have the cash to get that done. If you were dating a famous person, and obviously there's only a subset of us that go that road, and they were approached by a magazine that was willing to pay them a decent amount of money to show up in the birthday suit again, you probably wouldn't be able to write the check to stop them. Dustin was capable of doing it. And again, no word on whether or not it actually happened. I assume it did happen. I assume he did go ahead and hand her the bills. But that's just hilarious to me that she'd come home someday after getting the offer, tell the soon-to-be husband, be like, Dustin, Playboy wants to give me some money. Be like, I'll give it to you. Just don't do it, honey. Please don't do it. In other news, this UFO conversation is getting more and more interesting, I should say. The UFO conversation, whether or not they exist, how many they exist, how long we've known. There was also a conversation of USO, not the USO show, but a submerged object that I guess was caught on radar at some point in the past week or so. That's confusing. But the Pentagon is investigating another video of unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, that was leaked by a filmmaker just this past week. The video deciphers a radar screen on the USS Omaha during a UFO encounter in July of 2019. It is video. It didn't have an audio component that was valuable, so I can't play it here. I can go ahead and share it on my social media page, The Craig Collins Show, so you can check it out. This is the second video of this incident to hit this month as leaks ramp up before the unexpected June Pentagon report on UFOs, the Pentagon has now authenticated most of these videos. In this one, though, if you go check it out on my social media page, there are a lot of unidentified flying objects that just seem to be on radar. And so I don't know what this means. I'm going to take a step back for a second and wonder, with all the technology we have, with everybody's ability to create maybe their own version of a drone, is there any chance that some of this stuff isn't necessarily what we're thinking it is, and that a lot more of it is just people out there in the world with their own versions of technology that behave funny on radar? Or are we actually going to get a report about a bunch of unidentified flying objects that come in and out of our solar system? What does that mean? In and out of our orbit here on the planet, not our solar system. I don't know what that means. Are aliens real? And do a lot of us now accept that? Is this the kind of news that I can handle because of the fact that we're out of the worst pandemic in the history of ever, and any news would be interesting? And then I want to reiterate something I've said before on this show before, is I'm so disappointed that if we do get to a point where UFOs and aliens all become a thing, that we have Biden and not Trump. No matter who you are, no matter what person listening, what your political opinion is, you know that a much better press conference exists if former President Trump is standing next to an alien than if Joe Biden is. You know it exists. The wokeness in a Biden and an alien that he doesn't even describe. He probably asked the pronouns before he went into the alien. I just can't imagine how much of a miss this is. But it is interesting that there's yet another report out there, more radar to share. Like I said, I'll put it up on my social media pages, and more potential that we're approaching a world where, a lot of people have proof that aliens exist. And I don't know how you'll react to that. I don't know how I'll react to that. I don't know how Paulina Gretzky will react to that kind of information, because that's the kind of thing that I think she's probably going to need to have a conversation about too. But it's just so interesting to me that it's out there in the world. All right, before I move on to other things, the Senate passes a bill that requires the Biden administration to declassify intel on COVID-19. This is according to the New York Post. The Senate has unanimously approved a measure requiring the federal government to declassify intelligence on the origins of COVID-19. The bill, offered by a couple Republican senators, was passed late the other evening. This was Wednesday night by unanimous consent, a method which expedites the proceedings if no present member of the Senate objects. The rare moment of bipartisan agreement came only after President Biden ordered U.S. spy agencies to do their 90-day investigation. It is very interesting. We talk about UFOs and all of these things we might discover in the world, and I can't help but also go back to this idea of the COVID-19 origins and how different our narrative is, how different our conversations are right now compared to what they used to be, and what this 90 days, I guess, will demonstrate. But the fact that the Senate is in unanimous support of these kind of things, the fact that we're closer and closer to I guess, some version of transparency existing on this is a very, very good thing, of course. It's just the kind of good thing that you need more details and more information. And then I guess the other question, and this is a question I can answer after the break, what do we do? What is the next step? If we do find out the thing we're most worried about, how does the world respond to the idea that the COVID-19 origin is different than what we've been saying for a while? Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Colorado, one of the places where you can now get $1 million if you've gotten the vaccine. They have a new infomercial out there in the world.
That's right. You could win $1 million, and you might already be entered. Anybody who got the vaccine in Colorado or who gets the vaccine will be an automatic participant in not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 drawings for $1 million, a total of $5 million. We are doing a drawing to make sure it goes right to you.
Not one, not two, not three, not four, 5 drawings to get millions of dollars that came from the government funding that we don't need anymore. So we're just going to start throwing it at human beings. It's the weirdest thing. I don't hate this entirely. I should say that as I cover this kind of topic. I would like to win $1 million, of course. at the same time, it is kind of ridiculous. And I think there was data that said that if you paid people just like $100 to get a vaccine, that a lot of people would do it. So if you want people to get vaccinated and you want to start cutting checks for them, I guess $100 for everybody is probably better than this ridiculous version of a world we've gotten into where a few people are going to be millionaires because they got a vaccine in a whole bunch of places. Ohio started it. I blame them. Everybody's fault now. In other news, Tom Brady had started a cryptocurrency of his own, an NFT, a non-fungible token, or whatever it's called. This is called Autograph. I think this was announced back in April. He was talking about how he's going to bring the sports community together to create unique things that you can buy and sell and what have you in the digital space. This is sad that we have so many of these, I guess. But he also recently did he was part of a long conversation about this. There was a big giant broadcast, I guess, from Coin Census or Consensus 2021, which talked all about Bitcoin and other kinds of things. Tom Brady mentioned that he's very into digital currencies himself, and he went on a long rant about the work ethic he has. I don't hate Tom Brady. You can't kind of hate a guy who's still winning Super Bowls and being one of the oldest quarterback in the history of the NFL to do that. But it is weird to see him talk about his love for Bitcoin and non-fungible tokens and digital currency in general.
In regards to the laser eyes, I've certainly been following that community for a while on Twitter. Someone had really called me out to change my profile picture and use the laser eyes. So in my understanding, it was really a vote of confidence to really get into the conversation, as I'm such a big believer in crypto and where things are heading in the world. And I'm certainly not an expert. I'm on with Sam, Cena, we've had some conversations. So I'm listening to everybody, just excited to continue to learn.
I love the fact that they ask him about a photo of him that is used as a non-fungible token now, him with laser eyes. And then he talks about how he's such a big believer in this digital currency stuff. It is an interesting world we're in. I saw that there's an article out there now about why Elon Musk is such a big fan of Dogecoin specifically, because a lot of people have, and I know this is probably a conversation that some people listening are like, I don't care about any of this, and other people are very in. But Elon Musk likes Dogecoin more than any other crypto because it has dogs and memes. That's the decision making we have now in this world, is that some people are like, yeah, I'm in on that one because it's got dogs and memes. Do I understand any of the logic behind it? No. Do I understand how it works, why it works, what it's going to be turned into? I get none of that. But what I do understand is that there's dogs. I like those. And I also like memes, or I guess in Tom Brady's case, I like laser eyes. And that's something I'm into. All right. In other news in the world, something that might be as terrifying to some, there is this teacher out of Oregon that talked about how we have to start teaching our kids critical race theory or else we're harming the children.
I'm going to say something that's not nice and not sweet, but it's true. If you're not evolving into an anti-racist educator, you're making yourself obsolete in this field of profession.
What's so scary about this first take is the idea, or at least the belief, that this needs to be taught or else you're hurting the kids. And she definitely expands upon this a little bit more as she goes on. By the way, she's an 8th grade teacher who's teaching children, certain things about race, I guess, that maybe their parents are not comfortable with. Her name is Catherine Watkins, but she pushes a step further in her comparisons to why it's so important to teach a theory to kids.
So if you're being resistant, I understand that, but you're going to have to eventually come to the light, because if you're going to keep with those old views of colonialism, it's going to lead to being fired, because you're going to be doing damage to our children, trauma. And so as we fire the teachers who sexually abuse our children, we will be firing the teachers who do racist things to our children and traumatize them.
I don't even know how to respond to the very last thing she said there. Like, my eyes bug out of my head a little bit as I hear her compare teachers who are sexually abusing children to teachers who do racial things, even though to her that means not teach a theory, critical race theory, that it has been debated. It's not a proven fact, which is part of the weird thing that we're behaving a certain way, or at least, some people that lean a certain direction politically, I think, and others are saying certain things about this conversation. And then it's going to be such a a hot button issue to some that a teacher would believe that. That is an educator who teaches 8th grade students humanities at Cedar Park Middle School, and she thinks that it's the same as sexual abuse of a child if you don't start teaching these kind of things now. I can't get around that. All right, in other news, Greg Gutfeld said some interesting things on the 5 about the way in which members of the left are going to hide some of just how far to the left they are, including, of course, the President of the United States.
Everything the White House does is meant to prevent you from seeing how hard left the mission has become. It's the opposite of the previous boss. Whether you like Trump or you hated him, he did everything in front of you. Joe is more like a paid spokesman for an infomercial for a product that you never actually see. And then you get to this poll, right?
First, I got to give kudos where they're deserved. That is true. A lot of people do feel as though the current president is more of a spokesperson than a guy making a lot of decisions. And that a lot of the times the things he's saying don't connect to the actions that are being taken. But then Greg also mentions a poll where liberals themselves feel as though being too far to the left is a bad thing.
In polls of like liberal perception, it's presented as a negative when you are seen as too liberal, even by the liberals. So if you say, hey, look at this, he's really liberal. No. They can't even afford to be seen as a purer version of their own ideology, which tells you two things. One, liberalism can only be tolerated in small doses. It's kind of like whipped cream on ice cream.
That is a good joke as far as the first of the 2 points he's making, that, you know, it's something that if you have a conversation that lasts too long with someone that's ultra woke, you get annoyed even if you agree with some of the things they're saying.
And they need to lie about their depth of liberalism in order to survive.
Yes, and that's the more important one. The amount of people right now who represent being in the middle, well, they're truly very far to one side, should be worrisome for so many of us. And it should be the kind of thing that when you discuss it, when you talk about it, you wonder to yourself how we got here and how we get away from here. And it is true, as Greg pointed out earlier on, to talk about the way in which former President Trump handled himself and the way in which Biden handles himself now. I've actually heard people say that Biden is attempting to be boring. He wants to have nothing interesting really happen because he feels like that's a big a deviation from what we had in the past. And yet former President Trump did do everything out in the open. He would tweet far more than any president. I know a lot of people were mad and a lot of hurt feelings and bad things were said. And yet you kind of knew all the agenda all the time and his position on a lot of things. I wish we had more of that now. All right, shifting gears entirely. There is a holiday coming up. I just want to talk about this real quickly before we take a break. What are some of the top foods you expect Memorial Day? It's a fairly obvious list that was asked for. That was a survey that people responded to on social media. Number 1, burgers, hot dogs, ribs. These are pretty normal. Sausages, chicken wings, pulled pork, and brisket. These are top items to have as dishes. Side dishes, though, are where people are actually usually more interested. This happens with Thanksgiving. It happens with a lot of these get-togethers. And maybe because it's been so long since so many of us felt comfortable and or at least like it was approved by most of society for us to get together in large quantities. I know some of us did it anyway. Maybe that's the excitement of these kind of things. But the side dishes you need this Memorial Day: potato salad, corn on the cob, baked beans, watermelon, chips, coleslaw, and mac and cheese. If you don't have these things, people are more likely to be upset. Even if you don't have some of the staple barbecue products, at least get the side dishes, according to social media. All right, I got to take a break. A lot more in a bit. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
You stink like fear and white male privilege to me.
I do often out myself verbally as a gender. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm proud to be a gender.
Are you stupid?
What? Are you kidding me? Not a great way to use your white privilege.
Some people get it, some people don't.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. The New York Times has an article about a fugitive out of New Zealand who was hiding from the law for several days and then eventually turned himself in by hiring a helicopter, flying to go pick up food first, fancy food. He had a bottle of champagne and a platter of oysters before eventually having the helicopter fly him to police who apprehended him. He was on the run because I guess he had charges of wounding with reckless danger, possessing a knife, 3 counts of harmful digital communications, whatever that means, and failing to appear in court. This story is nuts. I read through it this morning and couldn't help myself. Mr. Bryant had been a fugitive for over 3 weeks where he was just wandering the South Island in New Zealand. He actually wound up getting to an area that is a hunting area. Anyone can possess it. It's a hut, essentially, that you live in. He passed his time as a fugitive of the law there doing yoga and telling reporters he was curious what his next move should be. He actually saw a video of himself on news on Police 10-7, which I guess is a crime show on the news stations there in New Zealand, and they described him as dangerous. So he walked his way to a hunting area that he could stay in and then stayed there for several days. There's audio of the individual that he got to help him, his advocate, I guess. I don't know if this is a lawyer per se, that helped him decide to turn himself in, and all the concerns that his client had, or however you say it, again, for just an advocate. I can't get over this story.
Well, Mr. Bryant contacted me. He's basically said that obviously I've got a high public profile. He said he was very worried about the police. He thought they might over-egg it, I guess, and I suppose he's watched a few movies and seen when they jump out with guns and all sorts of stuff.
Okay. So first, the advocate's like, my client's seen some movies, and he wonders if maybe he turns himself in, if everybody's just going to jump out, guns blazing, to apprehend him. And so for that reason, it became obvious to Mr. Bryant that he had to hire a helicopter to fly him again to get snacks first, very fancy snacks, oysters and champagne, and then bring him to prison.
He said, I'm prepared to surrender. He said, but only if you guarantee, that it will go down without any drama. And you accompany me to the police station and arrange for me to be uplifted. Already arranged the chopper out himself, so I just contacted Hazel here. And she drove up there this morning, met the chopper, and brought him back.
He arranged the chopper himself so that he could fly himself in to surrender. I wonder, he does sound like the kind of guy to me that at least asked the helicopter pilot how far the helicopter could go. He at least asked, like, how much gas do we have? How far can you get us? Do we have to go to the police station, or could you get me, say, to another country? Is that something? I know that the question was asked, especially while the guy is enjoying his oysters and champagne. I don't understand people today. The guy's 32. James Matthew Bryan is his name. 8 days that he spent in a privately owned open access hunter's hut that anybody can just walk up to and use for free, which is kind of cool. I want to know more about that. And now he's apprehended for crimes he committed. But that's the world we live in. The society we're in now, this is a thing that happened somewhere in the world. A guy decided that, okay, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Here's my demands for how I'm gonna accept my culpability there. A woman on Twitter went viral because she found out that a man she spent an evening with, I think this is called a one-night stand in some places, had a girlfriend that she had unknowingly helped this guy cheat on someone else. So what did the woman do when she found out about it? She left a note in the apartment she was in so that the other woman would find it. This went viral. There's a photo up on social media of the note. She hid it under the toilet seat. She taped it to the bottom of the toilet seat so that you could only see it when you lifted the seat up, I guess. She noted that this would be important because I don't even know. There's so many parts of this that are so crazy. I just can't believe that this happened. But I guess the note was found. I guess the person that was cheating got caught. And, of course, this story then goes viral on the internet. And I guess it's just a warning to anyone out there that might think that they would like to step out on a significant other. You might wind up going viral for making that mistake online. A man didn't want his girlfriend moving in. There's another story that broke on social media. This guy lived in Utah. He decided that because his girlfriend was starting to really ask to take that next step, the move-in step is a big step in relationships, that apparently he burned his house down. The guy who lives in Clearfield, Utah, I'm laughing. I don't know why I know why I'm laughing. Just south of Salt Lake City, had a lot of drama going on, a very dramatic plan to get out of. You got to just be able to tell somebody you don't want him to move in. He's 29 years old. His name is Jordan. The firefighters got there and easily noticed that it seemed like the fire had been set on purpose. And he said he didn't know exactly how to start it. This is the guy, but he did start it because things with his girlfriend had not been going well. And if he just burned down his house, he'd keep her from moving in just a little bit longer. Yes, these are the stories that I see in the news sometimes where I now know that young people need to figure out better ways to communicate. Put the phone down, figure out a way to have a conversation face to face and say something negative, even a little bit negative if you need to, in order to avoid a felony charge from lighting your own house on fire. Jordan also told the police that he was addicted to meth and that he'd heard voices in his head that told him he really should light the house on fire. He is charged with aggravated arson, which is a first-degree felony. So I guess, again, maybe put down the meth. That's probably a good approach to doing this better. But second, just have a conversation with the missus. My wife can be intimidating sometimes. She's 5'0", and she's not exactly, the most imposing physically of people, but there's conversations I might not want to have, and somehow I soldier through. I've never burned down any of the things we own in order to avoid a tough conversation with someone, so I think you should do that. That's just my advice as the holidays are approaching. News, it's time for a break. A lot more coming up in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy $6 trillion day. $6 trillion budget day from President Biden. So much money, so much spending, so little time to talk about all the different things that'll get that are thrown out there as ideas as far as just a ridiculous amount of spending. And yet in other news, more important to me right now than the ridiculous amount of checks that our president wants to he is the top spending president. He has to be in the history of anyone to ever be in that office by far. And he seems to just think money is fake. I think he must be invested in Bitcoin or something. And he just thinks like I can write any amount of dollars onto a piece of paper and send that out and that'll be fine. But Republicans have sent a letter. This actually happened yesterday, demanding more information into the ongoing investigation of COVID-19's origins. These Republican senators, including Wisconsin's Ron Johnson and Florida's Rick Scott, sent the letter to the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, asking if what they can get here is just a clarification as to why President Joe Biden ended an investigation, the only one going on from the Trump era, into the origins of COVID-19. This comes on the heels of another report that says that there's tons and tons of digital information already in the possession of our country that hasn't been looked at all. This comes from the New York Times. Intel officials told the White House they have a raft of unexamined evidence that required additional computer analysis. The IC didn't look at the Wuhan lab intel on their own computers for 18 months. That is one of the most crazy stories I think I've seen, and especially when our last president ordered you to do stuff like that, and they're just kind of sitting there thinking, it'll be fine. We'll figure this out in the long run. I don't get it. I know a lot of people might make the argument that while we were still dealing with a lot of the fallout of the pandemic, it made more sense to focus on a solution, Operation Warp Speed being that solution, and to not necessarily focus on the answer to the why, to the origins. And yet now here we are a year later dealing with a government out of China that is very good and very interested in hiding truths from people, lots and lots of people. And we've given them a 1-year head start on trying to figure out, how to prove that they had nothing to do with this. There's no reason that this should have happened this way. There's no reason that the calls that were made all over social. And actually, honestly, a lot of media people have now blamed Trump for their dismissing of this story because they said they couldn't believe him to begin with. So they outright disagreed with anything he said, whether they had any information to do it. Just think about that for a second. You're in the world of reporting news. Your job is to be a journalist, to go find the truth. if you're not necessarily someone who, has an opinion you use on the air too much. But if your job is to go find the truth, you have a president saying that he thinks something is happening that should be looked into, and you just don't like him. You just think he's a terrible person, so you don't even look into it. You're like, no, that can't be true. I'm actually going to tell people it's a lie, and I'm never going to do any of my own research. It's nuts. All right. In other news, now this audio made me laugh. This is 2 Fox 5 anchors out of D.C. Talking about the cicada problem. Cicadas are going to be all over this country. They're already a lot of places. Cicadas are coming, the Brood X, in numbers that are almost as much as Biden wants to spend in dollars. I don't know if we'll see more cicadas or more dollar bills thrown up in the air by our current president. But these news anchors had a lot of fun with the idea that cicadas are also probably peeing on people.
And you might be feeling some drops falling from the sky that might not be rain. Might be coming from the cicadas. And look, everybody's got to go.
Oh, my God.
That is the worst video.
Okay. I have to stop it for a second. They are watching video of what seems to be a lot of water. I guess if there's enough cicadas, it's not water, a lot of pee falling down from the sky. If there's enough cicadas up there, and it disturbs all of the anchors on this team.
I've ever seen in my life.
It's like a garden hose.
Oh.
You ladies,
that rain, Tucker.
You ladies rethinking eating those cicadas now? Hey, we know one thing. That cicada doesn't have prostate problems.
Oh, my God. The jokes were flying. I can't believe that someone compared it to a garden hose, too, by the way.
That is the worst video I've ever seen in my life.
It's like a garden hose.
That's not the right thing you wanted to say there. Ma'am, I think we might want to change that audio, but that's the thing. If you were happy to go back outdoors, happy to be back in the real world, happy to have life start all over again, you now need to worry about cicadas taking a leak on all of us. But I'm still okay. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm just going to live in that world where that's okay. All right, I want to move on to some other audio that I really like because it's a Friday. Let's have a little more fun. I think that this might be a refreshing take, though, on I don't think I'd be capable of this one. As I'm saying that, I know that I couldn't follow through on the tip I'm giving to all of us. But a woman in England found a dude asleep on her sofa in her sunroom. So a guy went to bed in somebody else's house, and she was the nicest human as far as helping this guy out who is asleep in something other than his own home. It's startling to hear how casual she is about it, but also very refreshing. And like I said, maybe not this kind of thing. Maybe we can find other differences that we could come together on a little bit easier and maybe handle more like this.
Excuse me. Do you know you're in someone's house?
No.
Yeah, you're in our house.
Oh, sorry.
There's more audio. She's actually waking him up. So the first no is kind of like he's still asleep. And then he wakes up and he's like, oh, I am in somebody else's house. I'm sorry.
Were you drunk last night?
I was a little bit, yeah, and I was just trying to find my house.
I have to stop stopping it. I can't help myself. Did you drink a little bit? Yeah, I was last night. I was having a bit.
Whereabouts do you live?
Up in Hadfield.
Yeah, this isn't Hadfield.
Oh gosh, where am I? Whereabouts am I?
Yeah.
Well, sorry about that. Apologies.
The last part of the audio, when you can hear it kind of change, he's actually stepping outside of the house as they're now letting him out, and he's asking where he is. Whereabouts am I? And they point. The lovely couple point the direction. They're like, your house is that way. It's that. He had no idea where he was. He had no idea what was going on. And he was nice to admit the fact that, yeah, I had a little bit to drink. I was not in my right state of mind when I went to sleep in somebody else's house. And that's okay. I wonder if that could be the excuse that Biden uses for the $6 trillion budget that he's passing. He's like, I was hammered. I came up with a number. I threw it out, and a lot of the very far to the left people thought it was a great idea, so we're just going with it. $6 trillion. That sounds like a number that's achievable. One other quick story, and then I do have to take a break. I know this holiday season we'll be doing a lot of grilling, a lot of eating out, and you're going to have some dessert after. A lot of people have ice cream. A new study apparently found that ice cream is a food that we feel judged about eating. If you consume ice cream around other people, 59% of Americans say that they feel judged. So they actually prefer to eat ice cream alone. The poll also found that 83% of millennials who think ice cream is just a treat that they shouldn't have that often are judging people for eating it too much. And that's crazy. They think that I just don't get any of this, man. I mean, it's so interesting to think that ice cream could be a potentially woke discussion in the future, that we could have hot takes on whether or not you should eat it. But 59% of people who eat this dessert would like to do it with no one around them. And I don't think that's because we all go, full deep dive into eating an entire carton of ice cream by ourselves. It's not that. It's not what you picture when you eat ice cream alone. Because when I do, I will be honest, when I see myself eat alone, I think I have a lot more of some desserts, some things like this. But I'm totally fine, as obviously our president is too. He just did this the other day, and the media loved it, by the way. The media fawning over Joe Biden eating an ice cream cone was also one of the weirder things you'll see in the last 24 hours. Almost as weird as the fact that he wants to spend $6 trillion on a ridiculous amount of things. And I don't even know if that number is actually real. If there's any intention to actually hit a number like that, or if he just wants to show America he's behind every cause we could possibly have. I don't know. But that's what's out there in the news today. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back after the holidays. Happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody out there. Be safe, but have fun. And what I mean by be safe is understand that we're doing okay, that everything is opening back up and people are allowed to go be social. So please take that offer up and have a nice time with a lot of loved ones. I saw this story in the news and couldn't help but mention this for just a bit. Patrisse Cullors is the name of one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter. She recently stepped down from the organization that she's been with for years, pretty much since its inception, as someone that created it. She's 37 years old. The reason she stepped down, she said, is because critics were going after her. The right-wing attacks that were trying to discredit her were unfair, and she wanted to remove herself from the spotlight. She does have a book deal, I think a second book deal, and a TV deal in development with Warner Brothers coming up. But she also purchased 4 high-end homes throughout the United States, which are reportedly worth a total of $3.2 million. This is according to the New York Post. When news of these purchases came to life, some of the politicians in the New York area asked for an independent investigation into how the group started by Cullors, the Black Lives Matter organization, not the ideal, not the sentence itself, but the group of people that do a lot more than say just that. How do they spend their money? It is a awful story, I'm sure, to a lot of people who think that is a worthwhile cause, although I don't think it's a surprising story to a lot of people who follow the organization that is beyond just the cause itself, because I do want to continue to make that point abundantly clear, because I do know that some people hear conversations like this and think you're being critical of the idea that Black Lives Matter. That's a simple sentence that I have no problem with. I obviously think that all lives matter, that blue lives matter, that all those things are important too. But I don't mind if someone says to me that Black lives matter and we need to do a better job of caring about that. What does concern me is the organization behind parts of that movement. Some of the things they've said, radical things, to news organizations throughout. They have no real structure per se. There are leaders in different areas of the country and they kind of do their own thing. In Chicago, someone had defended all of the rioting, looting that occurred as reparations. That was akin to getting paid money that was owed to members of our society. That's, of course, a terrible, terrible take at the very least. But now there's this story that one of the co-founders had $3.2 million of money to throw at housing of some kind. And it does make you wonder how profit happens. And in so many other places, so many other maybe political arenas, that the cause is what you focus on, and someone talks about the cause, and behind the scenes, money is being exchanged in ways that then gets spent on things other than, of course, Hunter Biden comes to mind and other people come to mind as far as the ways in which finances impact this decision. But that's out there in the world. Also, a Maryland candy store is selling chocolate-covered cicadas, and they are apparently inundated with purchases already. This is coming out of Fox News. They decided to start covering cicadas in chocolate because people were talking about wanting to eat them, and they can't keep up with demand, even though brood X cicadas are all over the place. The cicada needs to first be collected, frozen, boiled, and oiled. Oh, that sounds... I hate all the words I just said. Before it can be placed in the air fryer. Once the bug has been cooked and cooled, it can be covered in melted chocolate. When the chocolate is hardened, it can be served to people as a snack. And I don't want to ruin this, but I want to remind everybody that I just talked about a little bit ago how cicadas are also peeing on everybody. That's a story that's out there in the news. But hey, if you're in Maryland, you're hungry to try a new snack, you want to see, what all the fuss is about. Apparently, there is high demand for the chocolate company out there. Choquettes, I think is what it's called, chocolate and confections. They are selling out of all of their chocolate. So act fast and try to get there. Other news, and this only made me laugh because it sounds to some people like a non-fungible token, like Bitcoin. Like, it's hard to understand the existence of some things. A sculptor in Italy recently sold an invisible sculpture. It's invisible. I guess it's the energy from a different sculpture that is on sale. He sold it for 15,000 euros. People were bidding on this. I can't believe the money got this high, but it's not actually a thing. It's the former existence of a thing and the energy in a space that is, I guess, what people wanted to own. The successful outcome of the auction testifies to an irrefutable fact. This is according to one of the people involved. The void is nothing but a space full of energy, and even if we are empty in it and nothing remains, according to some principles out there, that nothingness has weight. It has value, and so it is. Oh my God, I wonder if the guy knows that this is. He has to know, the sculptor, that this is a scam. He's like, man, people are buying internet things that are kind of hard to figure out if they're real or not. Why don't I sell the energy of a sculpture, and see if people are down to buy that? And the fact that he made as much money as he did, it just depresses me. There's stories that I talk about on the radio sometimes, and I just want to tell society to stop. We need to calm down. We need to pull ourselves back into the world of normalcy. You can't buy. Everybody at that auction needed to be yelled at by a loved one and had taken out of the auction and leave so that no one is spending money on things that don't exist. There was a new study, too, actually, out of Singapore, demonstrated the absolute longest a human body could live. Right now, it's 150 years. I'm not sure. I've joked before about how I want to go full cyborg. I will let Bezos, even though I don't trust the guy, put different technology pieces into me to keep me going. But 150, and there's not many people that make it, if anybody ever has made it, I don't think, to that age. Maybe some have come close. But that just sounds, that's way too much. I don't think that we need to go that far, although there is research, too, tied to this story. Research even in dogs, because humans apparently live too long for the research to be valuable. This is a real story. There's places out of Silicon Valley that are studying what kind of diet or medicine or different treatments could be applied to canines to have them live longer. The hope is to double the age expectancy of a dog and then to eventually add that science to human beings so that in the coming years we could live to be 300. We could live to be much older, and I'm not sure that would be the kind of thing, again, that I would want. But hey, science is never told to stop. They just keep going, except when it comes to figuring out the origins of coronavirus. I guess on that one, science took a break for a little while. One last quick story before we get out of here. A new study out of Michigan State found that we don't get enough sleep, and that caffeine can actually help us with simple tasks. This is not shocking at all, but it doesn't help us with complicated ones. So if you do struggle to get sleep for whatever reason, you wake up and you start to depend too much on your coffee, apparently the reason why you might not be capable of getting a complicated task done is because coffee is not enough to get you there. You need a better night's sleep. Michigan State has said in order to handle all the complicated, maybe that's the thing. Maybe we can't handle complicated conversations as a society right now, not even tasks, but you can't apply your brain to something that has more points than could be made on a Twitter post because we're not getting enough sleep and we're drinking too much caffeine. That is something definitely to think about over the Memorial Day weekend. As I said, Chad Benson will be back after the Memorial Day weekend, so he will be back on the air in just a few days. I'm thrilled to be here with you. My name is Craig Collins. Check out my Facebook page, facebook.com/The Craig Collins Show, for a bunch of the crazy and wacky stories I talk about on the air whenever I fill in because I'll put them up there. And actually just get some sleep. I guess it's the last thing to do before the holiday. And have a good time this Memorial Day weekend. Please, don't be afraid. Go out. Enjoy yourself. Be back soon.
This is the Chad Benson Show.